Hello, everyone. With everything that is going on right now between Russia and Ukraine, um, I thought it would be a good thing to have a refresher on how it all started. And I have BBC to thank for that because apparently they thought the same thing. So today on the BBC website, there's this very excellent article with pictures that talks about the invasion. It presents a very good timeline. I covered this before, but these are professional journalists. I'm not. Who can write about this in a much better, kind of a solid, concise manner. In addition, they talk about something I haven't talked about. I haven't covered this. Whether Putin wants to get rid of Zelensky. The answer is yes. And they talk about the reasons why. In some ways, I think when it comes to Zelensky, Putin kind of shot himself in the foot. Allow me to explain. So after pro-Russian President Yanukovych was overthrown during the Maidan events and ran away to Russia, there was a temporary head of the government, very actually good guy, good military guy, Turchinov, who was placed in charge just to sort things out until we ran an election in April. At that time, Petro Poroshenko was elected. And again, there's a lot of anti-Poroshenko sentiment, including in Ukraine. Personally, I liked him. There's some debate as to how he handled the hostilities in the Donetsk region. So there is that. That remains. And it's kind of difficult to sort out how much he was involved because there's a lot of misinformation and speculation running around there. But he was a good statesman. He had a lot of respect in the international arena. Nevertheless, during the next election in 2019, Zelensky was elected, and Putin probably thought, this pipsqueak who used to be an actor and a comedian, I will crush him. What happened in 2022 when Zelensky uttered his famous line, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition, turned all of that on its head. Suddenly Zelensky, who was still and is still as a statesman, a very inexperienced, he still has a lot of growing up to do. He still has a lot to learn. But suddenly he became a hero. He became quoted, not just by Ukrainians, but by people abroad. A lot of young men abroad, and a lot of actually not so young men went, holy cow, this guy is badass. And that has to bother the shit out of Putin. So, when he realized that Zelensky would not be crushed, despite his inexperience and despite some of his blunders in the international arena, Putin came to hate Zelensky, and he does now want to get rid of him, which is why he keeps making up excuses, talking about why didn't Ukraine have an election and so on? Because you started a war, and that Zelensky doesn't have the right to conduct negotiations because of the law introduced because Russia started a war. So there is that. And then there is the whole NATO conversation. I talked about this, that when talking about NATO expansion and Russia, we have a problem there with causation. What caused what? And I have walked you just a couple of days ago through the list of dates, illustrating very clearly that it wasn't NATO expansion that caused Russian aggression. It was the other way around. Every time Russia attacked its neighbors, other countries looked at that and said, heck no, and asked to join NATO. So the BBC presents this really awesome map talking about countries that joined NATO since 1949, since it was first set up. And again, you can take literally an article on Russian expansion and put it next to this, and you can see cause and consequence very, very clearly. Meanwhile, we have two big events happening right now that are also covered by multiple sources. One, of course, is the Ukraine-US meeting in Saudi Arabia. Incidentally, is the U.S. delegation going to complain that the Saudis showed up to the meeting in robes instead of suits? Wondering about that. And a big drone attack launched by Ukraine against Russia. So here's a thought about the conversation in Saudi Arabia. Personally, I'm very skeptical. I know a lot of people are, not just me, but people who have experience in these things. Political scientists, economic scientists, historians, and so on and so forth. Now, some are saying it probably will not go as badly as the meeting at the Oval Office because Trump is not there to bully Zelensky. There is a kind of hope that the U.S. delegation this time comprises more intelligent and better behaved people than Trump, which is, the bar is low, let's face it. So there is a hope for that. We'll see how that goes. At the same time, let's not forget that no matter who is in the U.S. delegation, they're still all Trump's people. So, again, I reserve opinion until after it's over. And then there is this. So this is big. We talked about the Game of Drones a lot in these videos because by employing drones, both Russia and Ukraine have revolutionized the modern warfare. Ukraine specifically is now one of the world's leaders, if not the world leader, on drone technology. And some of the stuff they came up with is actually truly unique. And again, I don't understand why everybody is not jumping on that particular bandwagon in terms of what Ukraine can teach them when it comes to unmanned military technology. Why is this attack important? First of all, it is in the Moscow region. We talked about how Ukraine had surgically delivered those super precise drone attacks all over Russia. And the effect was not just the obvious one, the economic effect, the military effect, because they were targeting military objects, oil refineries, airfields, weapon storages, etc., etc. But it was also a psychological move because suddenly we had Ukrainian drones appearing hundreds of kilometers into Russian territory, and that freaked the Russians out. Mission accomplished. So in this particular case, this is very important. The location is incredibly important because look at the map. The oil bases in the Oryol district and Moscow region are close to home, really close to home. These oil refineries are processing 11 million metric tons of oil per year and cover almost half of Moscow's gasoline and diesel supplies. That is gonna hurt. Now, Russian officials first basically lied about this. They said that civilian sites were damaged across the Moscow region. Supposedly 3 people were killed, but again, I don't believe anything Russia says until it is confirmed by other independent sources. They also said that they shot down a bunch of drones. Well, they continue their practice of destroying drones by using the oil refinery buildings, which works just fine for me. So this was a serious hit. No doubt Russia will retaliate, and it will hit Ukrainian civilians, but this was a big one. More to come.